Hello, our lovely listeners. I just want to note right at the very top of this episode, if I sound differently, it's because for whatever reason, both of my microphones aren't working. So at present, I'm currently folded in half like a lawn chair, trying to speak into my laptop at the moment. We appreciate your patience.
I've had no technical difficulties on my end, so
Fucking flex, why don't you?
I can't flex, Kevin. I got my second vaccine dose and my arm hurts.
Well, congratulations on getting that second dose.
Well, thank you very much.
It's about time, by the way. We need to catch up on movies, man.
There's so much to talk about, and I did not want to mince it at all. I was like, we can do it all, Kevin. We could do it all. So we're going to attempt to do it all.
That is the Trailer Hitch way. It's bite off more than you can chew and then chew it.
So what are we chewing on today? Should we tease them before our lovely theme song?
Oh yeah, I mean we absolutely can, man. Okay, so we have Amusement Park, The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard, Forever Purge, A Quiet Place 2. We're also going to be talking about The Green Knight, and we're going to be talking about Venom, Let There Be Carnage. I'm just so happy I could get through that in one breath. I think that's our cutoff for us, by the way. Can we say it all in one breath? No, then we got to make some trims.
But you were able to do it. I'm so proud of you.
This episode, we got plenty to talk about, which, yes, indeed, includes a very brief trailer in the rear view for Mortal Kombat. This is not something we both gave a need to see rating to, but at the same time, I mean, goddamn, wouldn't it be fun to talk about a movie? That's what James and I thought, so we're going to be talking about a movie. Now, before we get into this theme song, folks, we got plenty to talk about. James is vaccinated. I am... what's another way to say folded like a lawn chair, James?
You are collapsed like a bunch of broccoli.
I feel like this is a new yoga pose that I've accidentally created.
You can't haul your stuff without a trailer hitch. Trailer hitch.
Releases by the movie trailers. We're trailer hits. This movie might totally suck, but the whiskey sure is going down fine. Yeah, we're trailer hits.
Kevin, nothing is more rock and roll than creating new yoga poses. I've always said it, and I'm just glad we finally are talking about it here on the podcast.
My core is so strengthened right now, James.
Also, my collapse like a bunch of broccoli joke, Kevin, that is a reference to Young Frankenstein.
Oh shit. What part?
Oh my gosh, it's the beginning when I'm gonna describe to you the whole movie. I hope you guys like
I really love the movie. That's why I'm surprised I don't.
So he's teaching that class in the lab. So he puts the clamp on the old guy's neck and then like knees him in the groin.
Yeah.
And so he says, without these involuntary responses, we would collapse like a bunch of broccoli. And he pulls the clamp off, and then the old man just crumbles to the ground. Okay. Anyway.
Really what we need to start doing, James, is release a compendium podcast, like something in addition to this, or an appendix podcast, where it's just you doing that for every reference you make, is to just take like a minute and a half and just be like, all right, so in Dumb and Dumber, hour 1, minute 26, this line comes up. By the way, I just rewatched Dumb and Dumber a couple days ago. It holds up.
Anyway, should we move on from movies from the 70s and 90s?
To talking about the trailers of today? I sure think so. Hi, welcome to Trailer Hitch. I'm Kevin.
Hi, welcome to Trailer Hitch. I'm James. I want to point out that the irony of me saying, let's move on from movies from the 70s and talk about new trailers. The first trailer we're going to be talking about, guys, is for a movie that was made in the 70s. So that's kind of interesting.
It is kind of interesting. I really wish you had said that after my shtick, because that would have been the perfect lead-in. However,
may have forgotten it by then, Kevin, so I need to derail things
you just
sometimes.
You gotta get in, like, as soon as you can.
Yeah.
Let me get in really quickly. Just mention that Trailer Hitch is a podcast where we rate and review movie trailers. We rate them on a scale of need to see more, or never need to see. If James and I both give a trailer a need to see rating, we celebrate. Then we go see the movie, report back to you guys in a segment called Trailer in the Rearview, in which we talk about the trailer in retrospect and then review the film writ large, which is a thing that's going to happen tonight. We are going to be talking about Mortal Kombat, albeit pretty briefly. As you heard, there's a lot to discuss, and that includes Young Frankenstein. But before we get into Mortal Kombat, yes, James is absolutely right. The first trailer we're going to be talking about is a trailer from the 70s. But wait, you might be thinking, listening, you guys don't do retrospective reviews. Well, you did a couple of times, but that was like a year or two ago, and I don't even think you gave that a segment name. You're correct, listener, who's oddly encyclopedic with your knowledge of the show. Are you me? So the first trailer that we're going to be talking about is a trailer for a lost movie. This is actually a George A. Romero film that we all thought no copies existed anymore. And then I don't know the story behind this, James. I don't know if someone just found this shit at a garage sale and was like, well, I just happen to have a way to convert this to 4K. And thus it got to Shudder. But more or less, that's what happened. We have the Amusement Park, and we're going to be talking about this in Courtesy Honk.
One of these times, the door will open in your life, and you will step into the amusement park.
Oh, no, it's fun. You'll like it. You'll really like it.
There's nothing out there. I'll see for myself. Bye.
Okay, like I said, like Kevin teased, this is Courtesy Honk section. This segment is reserved for stuff that we don't really want to devote like a really, really long time to. So ladies, gentlemen, non-binary listeners, this is going to be quick bits of these things. Okay.
Yep.
We have 3 things to talk about. Let's dive into the amusement park. Yeah. And it says in the titles, hey, this is like a lost film from 1973. And I was like, George A. Romero, cool. I haven't seen like a lot of his movies, but I've seen Night of the Living Dead. I've seen Dawn of the Dead. And I'm just obviously a big fan of his influence on the genre. So I dove into this, and it's bizarre. It's real weird. Kevin, really, it's like the novelty of this whole thing that has me so interested. Maybe not so much like the subject matter, which I'm not even sure what the subject matter is.
I mean, yeah, the subject matter is pretty vague. Like the best guess I can surmise is that this is basically just, it's an amusement park, but haunted, or, run by nefarious people. Basically, Rob Zombie has rested on his laurels being like House of a Thousand Corpses. Now that was a fucking original idea. No one came up with that before me. And now he's watching this trailer on Shudder like, well, shit. My career's been a lie. We don't really know a ton about it. And this trailer is 100% just trying to sell you on the fact, hey guys, we found a George A. Romero movie. Isn't that sweet? And here's the deal. Yes, it is. That's really cool. And it is awesome that something like this can exist. I have to assume that George A. Romero's estate approved this, because there is this part of me that wonders if George A. Romero, right before he passed, was like, man, well, at least no one has to watch the amusement park ever again. It's a good thing that was lost. There's at least that.
That's like George Lucas with the theatrical cut of Star Wars: A New Hope. He's like,
yeah,
oh God, I burned all the copies.
Yeah, exactly. But we don't all have Lucas money and therefore Lucas flamethrowers. So George A. Romero, poor guy, didn't realize this was stuck at a garage sale somewhere. By the way, that's not the official story. I keep saying garage sale. I just like to clarify for journalistic purposes. I'm lying.
I mean, that's like 50% of Shudder's employees are just interns that they send to garage sales. But yeah,
Killer Tomatoes from Neptune. Okay,
why Neptune? Oh, we'll get into it.
They don't explain it till the 45-minute mark, but look out when they do.
But yeah, okay. So yeah, that's all I had to say about it. I thought the novelty of it was kind of cool, and it's
it's one of those things where like the first 20 to 30 seconds of the trailer, I was like, oh man, this definitely looks like it's a super low budget movie from 1973. But especially as the zaniness started within the trailer, I actually thought the lo-fi quality really worked for it. It did kind of give it a quality like, oh, we were able to somehow sneak this footage out of this fucking hellacious amusement park. And yeah, like there's a lot of really strange angles through all of this. Like if you're looking for just a straight on medium shot, fuck you, buddy. Go on to the next trailer. Because this is all like low angle shots and like all of the framing is sort of off. And it provides like a really interesting visual texture to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things where, again, you're completely right, James. This is all about that novelty, and it's all about throwing up the critic quotes to be like, gee whiz, we found it. And that's what this trailer is.
Yeah. I will find the amusement park in which they shot this, and I will go there. But until then, we should move on to the next trailer. What say you, Kevin?
Next trailer we were talking about is the Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard.
Michael Bryce was trying to put his past behind him.
You need to forget bodyguarding. Repeat after me. No bodyguarding.
No bodyguarding.
Then he got pulled back in.
Let's go! Jesus!
To protect this homicidal nutbag's wife.
What is he doing here? I said, can anyone but Michael Bryce?
I believe it's pronounced thank you.
This is something that James and I have wanted. Like, we were going to review a trailer for this, like a full proper trailer a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And it just was one of those things where we couldn't say all the trailers we wanted to say in one breath. So we had to cut it. And now we wanted to bring this new trailer up specifically because of the beginning. And only the beginning, which I thought was such an interesting choice. James, you want to clue the listener into why we're talking about this?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, for anyone who doesn't know, it's a Ryan Reynolds, Samuel L. Jackson, Salma Hayek action comedy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sequel to The Hitman's Bodyguard. Zany adventures happen. You know, you've seen these trailers a dime a dozen. You know, if you like that kind of movie, which I do, it kind of does it for you. But, Kevin, like you hinted at, there was something special in this one that really just made me go, well, let's tap the brakes on this one. Give it a little love tap, little courtesy honk. They brought back the trailer voiceover guy. This is a thing that has not been in trailers earnestly in a long time. Maybe early 2000s, right? Is like the last time this fad kind of died out.
Yeah.
And they put it in, and there's a voiceover guy narrating what's happening.
He's just a 2-bit bodyguard.
Yeah.
He's the crazy guy. He's got it. I'm not shitting you, folks. It's not quite as like wappity bappity boo, but like, you know, it's a legit trailer voiceover guy basically talking you through the setup for this trailer. But then what's so fucking weird about it, James, is then like after maybe the minute mark of the trailer, they just stop. And then they go into modern trailer editing, which is just like, yeah, you can just use dialogue to piece it together.
I noticed that too. I'm like, oh, they just like abandoned that. I'm like, was this some kind of joke that the trailer editor did and then forgot to take out the first half after he was we all had a good laugh after that VO. But here's the real trailer. Oh, crap. I only took out half of it.
Some poor editor spitting his Gatorade at his fucking laptop screen, watching the thing on YouTube. It says joke in the file name. How did this happen?
Trailer Hitch is going to have a field day on my trailer.
I really hope that we don't create a source of anxiety for trailer editors.
No, absolutely, because this creates buzz on the trailer. Sure. I actually liked this trailer. I think this looks like a lot of fun. But
I thought the back half of the trailer was fine when I wasn't bamboozled by trailer voice guy.
So bamboozled is the perfect term for what was going on. But that's the Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard. Honk honk.
Honk honk forever, you could say. Because, James, we have one more courtesy honk, and that is for the Forever Purge.
Help me! Help me! The purge is
Now, this is the 5th film within the Purge franchise.
Right.
We basically just wanted to bring this up, one, to just be like, oh, wow, that's still a thing. And I also wanted to bring up, because the concept of the Forever Purge is the Purge happens. The beginning of the trailer is, all right, everybody, end of the Purge. And you see people, whistling and just like humming sweet nothings as they power wash the fucking blood off of the storefronts and shit.
Yeah.
And then you see people starting to go on about their lives, but then all of a sudden there are purgers afoot. But what's this? The Purge is over. Crime is illegal again. And they're like, no. We're starting the Forever Purge. And I just want to throw out there, the concept of a Forever Purge kind of negates the fucking purpose of a purge.
Yeah. If you're purging forever, it's not really a purge, right?
Right.
Would you call it a binge then? A forever binge?
You.
Yep.
See, this is why I put you on the spot on occasion. But the concept of a Forever Purge.
Yeah, I mean, it's people with wacko rationale to everything. Basically, it's clearly a group of people that thrive on lawlessness, right?
Yeah.
So the thing that was interesting to me about this trailer is there's some interesting commentary here, but with like a horror Western vibe. I really liked the costuming. It's very creative and different.
Sure. And I will say, they do mention in the trailer, there's like this little throwaway line, because I think this is something, and I'm speaking as someone who has not seen a Purge film.
Wow.
But to my understanding, with the Purge, part of the deal with that shtick of crime is legal for one day is people who are really rich are able to afford to fortify themselves incredibly well. And there's a throwaway line in this trailer where the guy who is, rustling up some innocence is saying, yeah, well, like, we're going to do this Forever Purge. And then that way, like, you rich folk will finally get a taste of this, which I will admit, that's sort of an interesting angle, making sure the rich folk end up getting theirs. But the idea is, like, we're not necessarily following, like, super rich folk. Like, we're kind of looking at, like, a couple of farmers, and they appear to be pretty successful farmers. But it's one of those things where I think if that's where they wanted to go with this concept, they probably could have picked different characters to better exemplify that, one. And two, if that's the idea of like, we're going to keep this going so that way you rich folk can get yours, you are going to put us in a position where we have to root for 1%ers, which is it's a very weird time to be asking us of that. But yeah, it's one of those things, the horror Western vibes. Yeah, I mean, like, the images are really, really blown out, and like the color palette's really desaturated too. So I kind of felt like everything sort of had this like very rustic look.
Mm-hmm.
There were certain points though where it almost kind of started to veer into like straight to DVD quality for me, like especially with some of those really bright exteriors.
Okay.
And when it comes to horror Westerns, I want to throw out there for you, Bone Tomahawk. If you are into that sort of genre mashup, Bone Tomahawks, or you should get on that.
That was in my queue for quite a while, and I never got around to watching it. But
yeah.
I should revisit
It's fucking
that.
long, but yeah.
Like you said, I think it's the coolness of the Western. Sorry, like I said, the coolness of the Western. I liked. I did also. The irony was not lost on me of people fleeing to Mexico because Americans are just batshit bonkers. And
yeah, again, having not seen any of the Purge films, to what I understand, there is always some sort of political commentary within
I mean, I've only seen the first one, but yeah, it's always been present.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's the Forever Purge
and a honk and a honk.
Honk honk.
But now we got to go into a tune-up, my man.
That's right.
Because we have to talk about the final trailer for a movie that we talked about over a year ago. This is A Quiet Place 2.
I don't know why you came all the way up here. There's nothing left.
There are people out there. People worth saving.
All right, James, we better speak now or forever hold our peace about A Quiet Place 2, because this is the final trailer. Even though I'm pretty sure we've already gotten a final. I should have looked. I could have sworn we already had a final trailer. So I will admit, when I first saw a final trailer within that YouTube name, I went, yeah, we'll fucking see. Like I've been duped before. Yes, we have this new trailer here. This is obviously long gestating. This was pushed back and back and back due to the pandemic. And now, in theory, holy shit, it's actually going to come out in a couple of weeks, which is pretty crazy to think about, considering how this was due to come out last April. So yes, we do. We have our new trailer here. I will just say off the bat, because of all of the title cards that we get thrown up and some of the critic quotes, boy, they really want you to see this in a theater, folks. Like, they are really pushing the fact that this is going to be in theaters, and this is an experience for theaters. And won't you go to the theaters? Dear God, please buy a popcorn too. Now, in terms of the trailer itself, James, start us off. How are you feeling about this, especially in comparison to those earlier trailers?
Well, I mean, I'm going to be honest, Kevin. I did not brush up on the earlier trailers because they're from over a year ago. Like, to give you guys perspective, the last time we talked about the Quiet Place Part 2 trailer in leading up to it coming out, we were also reviewing the movie 1917. Like, that's how long ago it was. So, no, Kevin, I don't really remember the first couple trailers. I do remember that they teased right away, okay, there's going to be some flashbacks in this so that we can get John Krasinski in it. Don't worry, everyone. Jim from The Office is here. Because, Kevin, you have seen the first Quiet Place, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, he did. Spoilers. he did.
Yes, very much so.
We start with another flashback, which is fine. It's kind of like recreating the same success with the last trailer, but I'm okay with it because it's all different scenery and setup. He's like in the grocery store and asking what happened, and
well, he's in the grocery store, but I think a really cool thing they do in that opening is they put so much emphasis on all of the sounds he's making while he's in there.
Yes.
And yeah, like the bell ringing and the bag tearing, and it is kind of this really nice, like, when you think about the concept of you have to stay as quiet as humanly possible to survive, you really don't take into account just how much sound you make. Mm-hmm. And it is like this really interesting, in retrospect, how loud everything is. And then you get that little news footage, and then all of a sudden the attack happens. And that's our opening. Now, I will say, even though I really like its emphasis on sound in the beginning, I will say those earlier trailers, actually, I liked their setup a little bit more. Now, that was more emphasizing them in the car freaking out and them trying to convince their kids, hey, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. You just look at me, as all hell is breaking loose around them. I think putting it in the kids' perspective, I think does a really good job as an audience member of making you feel nervous as someone is trying to convince you everything's okay when everything's falling apart around you, versus a bunch of adults looking at a TV screen and going, well, that looks bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I definitely think the opening has some great material in there. But yeah, between the two, I think I appreciated the kids' perspective a little more in those earlier trailers.
Yeah, I think on just like a character impact level or story impact level, yes. But like you mentioned, Kevin, the point of this trailer is to sell you on the movie theater. So I think that was intentional to go with this scene that is going to highlight all the tension building that just straight up sound effects will be doing, right?
That's an interesting perspective.
And it's like, hey, you got to see this. There's a reason we stock these movie theaters with the best sound ever, and it's for movies like this. So I think they were putting their emphasis on that, which obviously trailers can't be or shouldn't be 4 minutes long. So unfortunately, with this trailer, I think the kids' perspective had to get dropped, but it was still an effective trailer.
Yeah, for sure. And bear in mind, like, I think you would have obviously gotten a lot of great sound effects with the kids in the backseat as all hell is breaking loose. But I do totally understand, though, that this does create more of a build then within the trailer, where you start quiet, and then you have John Krasinski and his daughter running through the town, which is obviously very loud, but it does create a little bit more of a juxtaposition. So I get it.
So then we go from the flashback to modern day. It's Emily Blunt with her family, and it looks like they're just you know what? We can't stay on the farm anymore. We got to venture out, right? And that's where she meets more characters. And yeah, I mean, again, during this time, I'm seeing a lot of awesome visuals and a lot of awesome sound design, but I'm really not getting a whole lot of story outside of Emily Blunt saying like there's people out there worth saving, and that's basically it.
Yeah, I mean, like the impression that I'm getting is she traveled to some place under the predication that there will be other survivors here, and Chilean Murphy is effectively saying, listen, you done fucked up because there's no one out there. And Emily Blunt is still trying to hold on to that hope. And yeah, I mean, this is very bare bones in terms of story. And again, you're right. It is just trying to sell you on the theater experience. And doesn't this shit look sweet? You should come and see this in a theater. Yeah. And does it make me want to see it in a theater? It's actually the opposite. I think I like having seen this trailer, I'd actually kind of prefer to watch this at home. For me, this is a need to see more through and through. But how about you?
It's funny you say that. My reasoning is not based on my lack of excitement for it, because I am excited for this. It is a need to see more, but it's like a high need to see more, just because it didn't knock it out of the park as a trailer. Let's be honest. But yeah. I'm super pumped for this movie. Now, Kevin, to your question, would I go to a movie theater to see this? And I'm also on the fence about it. And it's because the sound design is so crucial and important and good in this kind of movie, because it was in the first one. It requires everyone else in the movie theater to shut the F up. And if you don't have someone shutting the F up during very, very importantly silent moments, it ruins it for everyone.
Yeah, that's complete.
It's not even, and it might not even be malicious. It might just be like them going for more popcorn, and that sucks because there's so many loud, noisy snacks in movie theaters. So
that really, in retrospect, that's something we should have looked at when it came to movie theaters. Like maybe we could have had, I don't know, something that didn't have crunch when it came to like go to American movie theater snacks. But that's fair, man. Yeah, when it comes to movie theater experiences, I know that those can be kind of mixed bags for people. And so, yeah, I mean, like, I can understand that. But
yeah.
Hey, maybe instead of leaning on the fence, we can start impaling people on fences, because that's something that I think, it spikes in Mortal Kombat specifically, where people get impaled on.
Just really whatever's laying around will be impaled.
Honestly, anything will do, including freezing someone's blood. Because yes, we did, in fact, see Mortal Kombat. So let's get into it, dude.
It had the same marking you do, Cole.
It's a birthmark.
What do you mean?
He was born with it.
That dragon marking? I think it's an invitation to fight for something known as Mortal Kombat.
I am Sub-Zero. Get over here! Finish them! Kano wins.
I need to see it. Take it off the fridge. This is not Sub-Zero's land anymore. I get to be partaking in this. Need to see it.
Okay, that is totally fair. I am at a need to see more.
Like Kevin mentioned earlier, we will not be talking ad nauseum about this. It will be very bare bone, if you will. And by that, Kevin, I don't mean the kind of bone that Scorpion's yanking out of someone's spinal cord situation. Am I right? This joke was delivered much better in my email to you earlier, wasn't it?
No. I'm just waiting for the minute and a half of you explaining it in order for us to get the full effect, James.
You see, Kevin, in Mortal Kombat, Scorpion's got this move. Just kidding. I'm not going to explain this. Okay, we're talking about Mortal Kombat. It's been a long time since I watched it, an even longer time since it came out. So I imagine most people are kind of like overhearing about it if they had seen it. So I just wanted to kind of jump in there, add my voice to the void, and be like, hey, I saw Mortal Kombat. Guess what? I didn't hate it as much as everyone else did. Boom, said
Oh,
it.
good. I'm happy to hear that. What did you enjoy about it?
The action is really good. I don't know. I liked the characters. I thought it was funny. Kano was like way funnier than I thought he'd be. I loved just everything to do with Scorpion and Sub-Zero. I liked the world building. You know, I honestly, when I think about Mortal Kombat, I really don't put much thought into like the how or the why of anything. It's literally just select your player. Okay, now beat the other player. It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter. Just press the buttons. Blood will come out no matter what you do. Just press the buttons. But I think there is something interesting with lore, and I thought this was interesting. And look, I didn't absolutely love it. There was things I disliked about it. But Kevin, was there anything that you liked about it?
Let's see. I thought the visual effects were largely well done. It's one of those things where we had a Mortal Kombat movie back in the 90s, but it was incredibly clear that we weren't ready for it yet, maybe. Now in ye old 2021, yeah, like I think that a lot of the special effects here are really well accomplished. And I do think that the fight scenes between Sub-Zero and Scorpion are really great too. Like those are incredibly entertaining. And I think that that's all really solid. And bear in mind, the only negative I was going to say at the special effects is some of the blood in that first fight did kind of look like Kool-Aid. That's my only note. Otherwise, it's like, good job on the special effects, guys.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that. And yeah, Kano is really entertaining because like he's definitely not a good person, but I feel like the actor brings enough charm to it where he sells it, where you love to hate him. And I think that he does bring a really nice dynamic to the rest of the movie because the movie is pretty much played with a straight face. And so having someone to acknowledge just how batshit this is was really nice.
Yeah. Okay. So things we liked. Great. Things we didn't like. I'm going to go first because my list is probably shorter. Not that you have to say your whole list, but the highlights.
I'm doing the one breath rule for the things I don't
there
like,
you
James,
go. The one breath rule. I love it. So for me, yeah, this Cole Young guy, yeah, that didn't really pan out to be something very interesting. And Kevin,
I know, dude,
you
in the
fucking called it when we talked about the trailer. I was like, give it some, credit. Maybe it's gonna be working toward it'll be fine. So.
Yeah, I remember saying I wasn't really too sure about this Cole Young guy, and now having seen the movie, I'm still not sure about this Cole Young guy. They're really making it a point to try and like build the franchise around him because he is effectively an Elliot Page character, someone who gets all the exposition dumped on him and stuff explained to him, and he serves as the audience surrogate. I really don't know if we can call him the protagonist, though, because he doesn't really forward the action, because everyone else is kind of giving him the information, and other people are challenging him to fights and things like that.
Sure.
And really, as far as a character arc is concerned, his arc was, I want to be better at fighting. And then the end of the arc is Goro almost punched my wife. And then he gets his powers.
Yeah.
And yeah, I didn't necessarily find that too satisfying. You were mentioning the lore of Mortal Kombat. And I think with this movie, I'll honestly kind of disagree with you here. I didn't really care for much of the lore here. I guess because like I am kind of a guy who goes into Mortal Kombat that's looking for the button mashy, and think that a lot of the lore within the actual games itself can also get pretty fucking convoluted too. And instead of like paring that down and kind of finding the essentials in order to just give us like an entertaining movie, it just gave us a lot of exposition and a lot of that lore. And I didn't really find it that interesting to have like, okay, now this is the third scene where Liu Kang is now going to explain this esoteric rule. And I think especially a part of why I didn't really care for it was because they make such a big point to set up. This is this tournament. It's been happening for X amount of years, and fucking if Earthrealm loses again, then we're donezo, man. The Netherworld just like comes in and takes our shit. They make it such a big point to say how organized this is. And the end of the movie, James, is Shang Tsung just showing up where our good characters are and just going, all right, we're fighting now. And it's like, well, that's not the fucking tournament. Like, we're basically watching the last part of the movie is just like effectively the warm-up fight. And I thought that was kind of silly.
Kevin, that was more than one breath. Just saying.
Yeah, and I wasn't going to say too much more negative. I will say something I did like to compliment Sandwich. I do like in the end where you see all the bodies of the killed combatants sort of kind of like getting yeeted off with magic, because that does imply to me as a viewer that the deaths aren't permanent. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, that would make me quasi interested in Mortal Kombat 2, because you can definitely tell this movie is trying to set up for a franchise. Because then if you do that, then folks, that means that we could get an Edge of Tomorrow style movie for Mortal Kombat 2. And doesn't that shit sound fun? Like, doesn't it sound cool to have Kung Lao come back and just be like, guys, I really want to sit this fight out. I just got disemboweled earlier. And let me tell you, it's not that pleasant. Like, I don't know, man. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah. So the last thing I was going to say is, you already said it, but there's no Mortal Kombat in the movie Mortal Kombat. Like, the tournament is just like talked about the whole movie, and then it never happens, and it's just like, I guess we gotta train harder for that tournament that's happening at ? Time. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say. We saw Mortal Kombat, and then we talked about it, so there you go. It's done. We moved on. We got 2 more trailers to talk about, Kevin, and I want to start talking about them.
Well, no, you're right. We are getting pretty late into the night, which kind of makes sense, James, because we are going to be talking about the Green Knight.
O greatest of kings, let one of your knights try to land a blow against me. Indulge me in this game.
I will meet thee.
1 year hence.
It's not so easy being the Green Knight, but will it be easy to watch? That's what we're here to find out. This is The Green Knight. It is written and directed by David Lowery. This is starring Dev Patel, Alicia Vikander, Joel Edgerton, Barry Coogan, our random shout out, because we here at Trailer Hitch like to give random shout outs to cast and crew members because the top billed people tend to hog all the credit. So we would like to shout out Stephen Byrne, who was the mold maker. Hey, Stephen, I don't feel like enough people appreciate the molds you make. That ends today. Thank you, Stephen. So this is The Green Knight. What's happening here? So basically the start does sort of posit this as a story within the story. It's like, oh, tell us a fucking great story. And then we go into our trailer. Mm-hmm. Where we have something walking into a room. Now, I don't necessarily know what it is. Our pal Stephen Byrne probably made the mold for it, but there's some hellacious creature that fucking walks into a room filled with a king and a bunch of knights, and he's like, hey guys, let one of your knights try and land a blow against me. Be pretty fun, right? Let's fucking do this. And all these knights look at each other. And then
by some miracle, the king doesn't say, no, get the fuck out.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Instead, someone just goes, Dev Patel. And then Dev Patel's like, all right, it's on me. And they hand him a sword and he goes up and he cuts the thing's head off. And you think to yourself, well, that's going to be a short movie. But then all of a sudden you hear, heh, heh, heh. And then Dev Patel turns around. And this hellacious monster then picks up his own severed head, which is blinking, and he goes, 1 year hence. And then he gets on a horse, and while holding his head, fucking Sleepy Hollows away. And you might be thinking to yourself, oh, that's pretty strange. So what happens? Well, a year passes, and then the king looks at Dev Patel and is like, well, fucking go get him. Like, it's been a year. Like, you gotta hit him again. And so off Patel goes. He ends up meeting a fox that talks, but really it's more so kind of a mutter. I don't know about you, James. I cannot understand a fucking thing that fox was saying this entire trailer.
Not a thing. It's kind of a theme because in Venom, there's a part of the Venom trailer too that I'm like, what did he say? So
this is the murmur hour of Trailer Hitch, yes. So after we establish our fox, we also establish a secondary threat, Barry Coogan, who ties up Dev Patel, and he's like, well, I'm going to go finish this quest. It's like, this doesn't seem like a fun quest. Why is Barry Coogan trying to do this? We get a montage, which is a visual fucking treat, and then we get the line, what do you hope to gain? And Dev Patel says what any knight is looking for, doing whatever task he tries to accomplish. And that's honor. That is why a knight does what he does.
Mhm.
And then that's our trailer. So, all right. So let's just start off the bat, James.
Yes.
The fucking visuals in this thing are off the chain. Like, I feel like that one perfect shot on Twitter, like that handle, is probably having a fucking field day just with this trailer because, dude, like the color palette in here is so cool. I think it really emphasizes a stylish and otherworldly quality that really sells this narrative. But how about you?
Yeah, man. I mean, I didn't write much down for this because I just wanted to riff off of it. But the one thing I did write down was confusion. Oh, what glorious, beautiful confusion. Because
Right?
I don't really understand the trailer, but I was just googly eyed the whole time watching it because the visuals are just that good.
Listen, I don't blame you for being confused because, like, from a narrative perspective, this feels bare bones as fuck.
And well, that's the
Like,
thing I was going to say. It's interesting that I am confused because I can also tell it's simple. I can tell
Mhm.
it's not complicated. But
incredibly simple,
but the
yeah.
trailer is just like, you'll get all that information later. Just look at it. Just look at it. Isn't it nice? Just look at it.
Yeah, it's interesting. It feels like a true in between from a narrative trailer and an atmospheric trailer, right? Because
Mhm.
it is really selling you on that atmosphere, but it's not purely that. It is also giving you this little mini story with Dev Patel and a fox you can't quite understand, and a dickish Barry Coogan. And yeah, it gives you like just enough of that narrative where you're like, okay, I can like kind of surmise what's happening here or why things are happening, but not really enough to like really hook me anyway.
Yeah.
Like why does that monster just pick that one fucking room? You know, like is there really anything outside of honor that Dev Patel is doing this for? Like, why is Barry Coogan being a dick? There are so many questions that this creates that the trailer has no intention of answering, which I'm totally fine with, but it's so heavy on those visuals. So even though the narrative doesn't feel fleshed out, the flesh is really beautifully shot.
Not only that, I mean, a lot of compliments go to the costuming and the makeup. Like this green night tree thing just like looked really great, and I think it's rad, and I'm really excited about it.
Cool. Yeah, it's one of those things where I don't think it can be understated how gorgeous this movie looks. I do also want to say the way they handled audio editing in this trailer is really good too. I think there's a really good right toward the end a clash between where it's really building up in score and then it just cuts everything out for Dev Patel's line honor. I think that's really, really well done.
It really helped, it makes the line land, like it really helps it along. Because on its own, on paper, that line might, not elicit as much of a rousing response.
Yeah, if you for sure.
It's a predictable line that a knight would say, honor, like that's just a thing. But man, all the aspects of movie making are at display here to make that line work, right? To make that line pop off the page. And yeah, man, they're doing it. I love me some A24, man.
For sure. Yeah, I'll just conclude by saying it can't be understated how good this movie looks, but it also can't be understated how understated the narrative is. And so, yeah, I am kind of left wondering whether that will be enough. There's a chance that this trailer is hiding a really fucking art house interior. You know what I mean? Because that is kind of A24's bag, which obviously I'm fine with. But it's something I do intend to find out, but maybe not necessarily because of this trailer, because this is a need to see more for me.
Oh, interesting, but also not all that surprising, Kevin, because this is also a need to see more for me.
Yeah.
It's visuals alone. If that's all we were grading it on, obviously,
oh yeah, then easy
double need to sees. But it was just, I was fascinated by my confusion because I'm like, it doesn't seem complicated. I feel like I should be following what's happening here, but I'm just like, but why do you need to land a blow on this giant's knight? Anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's one of those things, I think, to talk about our last episode with Annette, like, That was also one where it was very visual heavy, and we were kind of baffled by the actual story of the trailer.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it put so much more emphasis on those visuals, where it's like they gave us maybe like, what, 3 or 4 like key lines of dialogue in a net, and that was it. And it's like, okay, those are the 4 things. Yeah, we can kind of construct a narrative out of that. Let's go. And yeah, with the Green Knight, it does feel like there is like just one little element missing to get me like really fucking pumped for this.
Ditto. Okay, we should move on. Should we move on?
Yeah, I know. I'm sure a lot of people were expecting some double need to seize for like a really gorgeous art house trailer out of us. But you know, sorry, we had to let loose some Venom there. Which, speaking of Venom, we do have a trailer for Venom, Let There Be Carnage.
Welcome back, Eddie Brock. It's been a long time. Miss you so much. Soon come chaos.
All right, Let There Be Light on Venom, Let There Be Carnage. This is directed by Andy Serkis. No joke, it is directed by Andy Serkis. And written by Kelly Marcel. This is starring Tom Hardy, Michelle Williams, Woody Harrelson, Naomi Harris. Our random shout out is going to go to Rick Richardson, who was the SWAT officer. Hey, Rick, thanks for being a SWAT officer, bud.
Guess you didn't swat those Venom people away enough.
Well, I mean, we haven't seen the movie. We don't know. Maybe our buddy Rick just like fucking lays waste to Tom Hardy at the end of the movie, James.
Kevin, I appreciate you riffing off of that like you could salvage my joke, which you definitely couldn't, but I appreciate the effort. Thank you.
I like how you managed to burn me while also burning yourself there.
No, I'm just saying my setup was unsalvageable, but I'm complimenting your character of not leaving me dangling in the wind there.
You know, I'm all about those yes ands, regardless of if it's a sinking ship or not, James.
Speaking of sinking ships, should we talk about this Venom franchise?
Well, not to tilt our hand, really, but yes, indeed. Let's talk about Venom. All right, so we begin with Venom cooking breakfast for Eddie Brock. And Venom is singing and fucking things up. To you, James, did you see Venom, like the first movie in this franchise?
I saw it in the movie theater, and then I saw it again because I rented it after it was on digital.
Okay, now, would you describe the tone of the first Venom movie as a studio comedy from 2003?
No.
Well, it is now, because that's what that opening is. So yes, indeed.
So wait. Have you seen the first Venom movie?
Nope.
Okay. So there is weird humor in it. There is like between Eddie Brock and Venom. There's like weird humor. And I wouldn't call it good, but I wouldn't call it bad. It's just like weird. It's like, does this belong in this movie? I don't know. It looks like they doubled down on it.
Yeah, we are kind of jumping ahead to one of my criticisms later. But yeah, the tone is something that will be brought up later.
But that's the tone, Kevin, I'm telling you, the tone matches the first movie.
Okay, nope, that's legit.
Which is weird.
Yeah, from a story perspective, what you need to know, folks, is basically Eddie Brock is now living with Venom, more or less tolerating Venom. And there's a prisoner who becomes fascinated with Eddie Brock. And this guy's like writing him letters, basically just being like, hey, Eddie, like, I really think that you and I are pretty similar. And that prisoner happens to be played by Woody Harrelson, who's up for execution. Then bam, fuck you, he's suddenly Carnage. Then we get some shots of action, which looks, I don't know, fine. And then we see Carnage, who looks a lot like Venom, but red. But, you know, that's fucking Carnage. And
it's literally his whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's just Venom, but red. Now, we only do get one shot of actual Carnage in this, and I think especially because the designs are so similar, only doing like a here's your one look at him is like, we could probably have guessed what he looked like. Like, can we see him like do some shit? Anyway, at the
just screaming.
And then the end, we have a button where Eddie Brock goes for chocolate at this bodega, and this turns back into a 2003 studio comedy. And that's our trailer. So yeah, let's get into that tone right away, man. I appreciate that is what the first Venom movie is. And from that perspective, I want you to mark your calendar, because I'm about to say this. A DC film did it better. And that was Shazam. I thought that the way Shazam handled that quirky humor plus like some pretty dark and serious subject matter was really, really well accomplished in Shazam. I think that's like one of its strongest qualities.
Sure, yeah.
And I think with Shazam, a lot of that comedy feels appropriately mixed. Like they know when to go for a joke and when to kind of like let a serious moment be serious. But I also think a lot of that comedy is motivated by character. And here, Eddie Brock isn't supplying any of that comedy. And in addition to that, he's not really supplying that much of a personality either, because we mostly see him just sort of tolerating Venom the entire
time. They're really just an odd couple in that, especially that opening scene of,
he's cooking breakfast.
Yeah. Venom is clearly the Walter Matthau of the two odd couple and throwing shit all over the place. And Eddie Brock is just like, I'm over this. I have to clean up. You never clean.
He's being a sour Jack Lemmon, yes.
Yeah. That's the opening, and that is very much in vein of like the humor that the first one was. And yeah, it is very hit or miss in that first movie. So I imagine it's going to be very hit or miss here. But I think the trailer does do some more interesting stuff. I think the song choice after the breakfast scene, One is the Loneliest Number, that's a really good song choice for this. Eddie Brock's whole like thing in that first movie was like becoming one with the symbiont and feeling like this dependency and all that kind of stuff. So it's a fitting song, but it's also has juxtaposed with this kind of movie imagery. I think it kind of lends itself to the style of the film as well.
Well, and also there's a nice layer there too, because 2 can be as bad as 1, which maybe you could read as Eddie with Venom, although probably not if you've seen the first movie, because if you listen to James, they become 1. But 2 can be as bad as 1, then in reference to Carnage.
Exactly. It's multiple. It's layered, Kevin. It's layered.
It's the ogre of songs, yes. And I do think that the editing here, it's strong superhero trailer editing. You know what I mean? Like we have our build. Yeah, we have like our build, like you have like fun at the beginning and then your fun at the end, like you kind of bookend it that way. Don't get me wrong, like I understand like why they made the choices they made. And then it's just a matter of, do you necessarily like that content? And for me, not really. Like, because even from a story perspective, I don't know if they cover this in the trailer. I'm not necessarily sure how or why Carnage knows about Eddie Brock and why he's like, oh yeah, you and I are super similar, because, and presumably it's because they both have like that symbiotic.
Sure.
Maybe you can illuminate that for me, having seen the first film.
So it's not explained in the trailer, you're correct, but it's also not explained in the first one, but they tease it. So the end of the first movie ends, I think it's the post-credit scene, is Eddie because Eddie's a reporter, like he's an investigative journalist. And so he goes into this prison to talk to this serial killer. And then he turns around and it's Woody Harrelson with the red Carnage hair.
Dun, dun, dun.
And he also, in that post-credit teaser, he's like, ooh, I know about you, Eddie Brock. I'm excited to talk to you. And that's your tease, and you're kind of going away from it being like, how does he know Eddie Brock? Like, that's interesting. And then this trailer comes along and it's like, remember that question we left you guys hanging with? I'm going to ask it one more time, baby. So to answer your question in a very, very long-winded way, Kevin, no, that has not been answered.
Okay, fair enough. But yeah, I would say with this, I guess if you were, I'll be curious to hear your rating, James, as someone who clearly watched it twice. I would probably assume you're a fan of it.
It's so weird. It's so bizarre. I don't know why it worked for me so much, because it really shouldn't have.
But yeah, as someone who did not see the first movie, There definitely isn't very much in here that would necessarily get me excited or curious about this. So for me, this is a never need to see. But all right, as someone who thinks the first one mysteriously works, how does the trailer for the second one work for you, James?
I'm gonna throw you maybe a curveball, but also maybe just a boring response, Kevin. So this trailer has me at a need to see more.
Okay.
The goodwill that the first Venom movie established for our world.
You are the only person who said that sentence.
Was not able to carry me through this one to give it that need to see rating. Yeah,
Sure.
it's a need to see more. I think there's a lot to be desired in the carnage of it all. I mean, you're calling it Carnage. I think that we maybe had similar complaints when we talked about the very first teaser for Venom all those years ago. Was it 2 years ago? When that first teaser, I don't even think that ever showed anything of Venom as a character. You saw the goop in a cylinder, and you saw Eddie Brock freaking out on an MRI table, and I think that was like it for the teaser. So I kind of knocked it then, and I'm kind of knocking this one now because it's like, give me more of like what this is about. Like, I know Eddie Brock and Venom are in it, obviously. I know Woody Harrelson's in it, but like, what's the deal? There's also a woman with some superpowers in like a clear cubicle, clear cell, like making things float. Right?
Yes.
I didn't dream
indeed.
that, right?
Nope.
That was this trailer. Okay. So that's odd. Oh yeah, right. He goes to the Ravencroft facility. Whatever. I'm coming unhinged here, but long story short, I am excited for this, and I probably will see this in the movie theater just because this is such an odd thing. And it's why was Andy Serkis drawn to this? I have to know. I have to know. It's so weird. It's so random, Kevin.
I mean, like, I think it's the fact that like you have your main character and then also your central antagonist who are mostly going to be built through mocap. So they were probably like, let's get a guy who really fucking knows his shit with mocap.
I guess, but as like a director and someone who's, trying to make more of a name for himself as a director, it's just such an odd choice.
Sure.
So
hey man,
yeah,
give those superhero dollars.
Yeah, I gotta know. I gotta know what drew him to it, and that's probably why I'll end up seeing it in the movie theater. That and a mixture of the goodwill from the first one in my heart. But yeah, so that's it. Need to see more.
Well, that's a need to see more out of James. But is it a need to see for you, listener? You can let us know by writing us an email at trailerhitchmailbox@gmail.com, or you can hit us up on Facebook. If you search Trailer Hitch Podcast on Facebook, you should be able to find us there right on our wall. Send us a message, however you'd like to contact us. But, if you want that message to be short, say like 280 characters short, good news. We're on Twitter. You can send us a tweet at TrailerHitchPod, or if you'd like to take a picture and send it to us, you can do so on our Instagram at TrailerHitchPodcast. Or you can leave a comment on the very YouTube video you're watching. And speaking of YouTube, why don't you go ahead and like, rate, subscribe, do all the things that help us find more listeners. Or if you're not listening to us on YouTube, I'm assuming you're listening to us on either Apple Podcasts or Stitcher. And go ahead, like, rate, review, do all the things that help us find more listeners on those platforms. Because we want to hear what you think about Venom, or The Green Knight, or Mortal Kombat. Hell, I'll take an Amusement Park take at this point. Just go ahead, write into us, let us know. Now, before we go, we would like to thank Danny Schmitz from Lost in a Name for the amazing intro that you hear at the top of every episode. We would like to thank Jenny Hawks, our Bad Movie and social media correspondent, for her sterling work week in and week out. And we would like to thank Rachel Ashley for the amazing cover art that you see on our various social medias. You can find her work at Mighty Creations on Instagram. And lastly, we'd like to thank Casey Clowers for the amazing outro, which you'll hear momentarily.
Rock and roll!
Trailer Hitch.
And all their action scenes. I mean, by all, hang on 1 second. Just had a bubble there, and I was like trying to fight it, and I'm like, I probably sound silly for, you always sound, you can tell when someone's like trying to
kind of talking like this, or you gotta
trying to keep down a burp, and it's like, that sounds worse. Just pause, burp, and let's move on with our day.